So as far as the income tax subject is concerned, in your final module, they have started with assessment of individuals, companies, partnership firms, limited liability partnership firms, and then assessment procedure and rest of the part. But remember the earlier part which you have already learned in intermediate level. So the same part is also there for finals, even though it is not clearly mentioned in the final module. But if you look at the past examination questions, last obviously online exam paper you cannot see, but before that whatever attempts you have seen, you will see that you will observe that every attempt roughly about 30 to 35 marks or even 40 marks questions have been asked on intermediate syllabus. And that's the reason why it is very essential not to ignore the part which you have studied at intermediate level. I'm sure all of you must have studied the part in detail, but still there's possibility that you haven't studied some of the chapters or some of the things you cannot remember. So what we are going to do is we are going to cover up the intermediate syllabus, not very much in detail, but to a greater extent, we are going to cover up that part so that you will be well acquainted with the intermediate provisions, means whatever provisions you have learned in heads of income, deductions, and set of clubbing chapter. So we'll go a bit fast, but we'll try to cover it up because it is very essential that your tax base is very clear. And if that base is clear, then obviously you can build the empire of the income tax. Secondly, even if you take a chapter like company assessment or assessment of LLP, partnership firm, cooperative societies. So in all these chapters, the main part is you should be able to compute income, one, and secondly, compute the tax liability. So till the time you're not very much clear with the concepts, basic concepts, like how the income is computed, how the deductions are given, you will not be able to solve those questions. So if I directly start with that part, you may fumble. And that's the reason why we'll cover it up, those parts, like the heads of income part. And then we'll move on to the core syllabus, which is given in your module for the finals. All right. So before we start with it, okay. So in income tax, okay. So the first part which we always have to consider is residential status. At intermediate level, obviously this is an easy part which you did, and final level also, like you won't believe that last to last attempt there was a specific question on computation of income, and the assessee was resident and ordinary resident. So in final, even though in final you have direct tax and international taxation, and many times they ask questions on the international taxation part, still it happens that they are asking questions on ROR, RNOR, and NR. So not like intermediate, like basic question, but obviously they cover up different types of transactions, and they ask you that determine the income of the person. Similarly, sometimes they won't give you the information clearly. They will just give you about his whereabouts. Like वो इंडिया में कभी आया, इंडिया से कभी गया, and उसका nature of income या फिर उसका income बताएंगे, and then you will be asked to compute his income and tax liability. So at that time, don't forget, first of all, you have to calculate his income. So first of all, you have to determine his residential status. And according to his residential status, you will determine how much is his income and how much is his tax liability. So first of all, it is very essential to determine what is the residential status of the person. Accordingly, you will compute the income and the tax liability. All right. Therefore, computation of
Sir,
residential status and determination of income based on residential status is very important part. So that we'll study first. And this year there has been an amendment. Like those who attended the lecture yesterday, you will be aware that there is an amendment in the residential status. And what is that? We will learn during the residential status chapter. So don't ignore this chapter. Even in final level, they are asking questions, but it will be a bit of tricky question. So make your concepts very clear. Then obviously your heads of income. hmm, all the five heads of income: salary, house property, business, capital gains, and other sources. So we'll add all the heads of income, and that is your gross total income. So in those five heads of income, business and capital gains is the head which you cannot ignore at all. So even though you are at final, business and capital gains you have to study in detail as far as the syllabus is concerned, because at times it has been like it has happened in one of the attempts 16 mark question was directly asked on assessment of person and individual whose पूरा पीएनएल दिया था and उसका इनकम कंप्यूटेशन करने के लिए बोला. So there was no MAT or AMT calculation. Only thing is you have to remember the business and profession and some other sources provisions, and accordingly you were required to calculate a income. huh? So be very clear about these two heads, and obviously other sources there are certain major changes which has occurred in other sources. So other sources is another important part. Salary, house, property obviously will touch up those chapters, because when it comes to tax planning for salaried people, there can be few questions. House property, there will not be a separate question, but that question will be merged with other questions. So for tax planning or for tedious calculation, they can cover up those heads also. Hmm. Then next chapter is clubbing of income and set off. Set off and carry forward of losses. So you must remember these provisions, because obviously there is no separate question on this, but in main question they can merge few points out of these chapters. Like they will give you that income of a minor child is so and so. So how much will be clubbed? Or maybe they will ask you that last year house property loss is carried forward. Can you adjust that loss? Or maybe business loss or unabsorbed depreciation is given. So you should know that which loss is adjusted against which head of income. huh? So make these concepts clear. So even though you may not go very much detail, but make those concepts clear as to when the income will be clubbed, when the losses will be carried forward. So make those concepts clear. Then very important part is deductions under chapter 6A. Remember, practically also this chapter is very much important for you, because that is how your tax computation would be determined. Like your income is based on how much deductions you get. So after reducing deductions you will compute the tax liability. So you need to know how the deductions are computed. So right from 80C to 80U, you should be comfortable with all the sections. As far as in between sections are concerned, like 80IA, IB, IC, ID, IE, so those sections which you might have find tough at intermediate level, again at final level you need not go in detail, because if you observe the examination pattern, like past papers, they give you how much is the quantum of deduction for these heads. Obviously for other heads like ATC, triple C, ATU, they will not give you specification कि limit कितना वगैरह वो नहीं देंगे. बट ये जो सिलेक्टेड चैप्टर्स है तो उसके या सिलेक्टेड सेक्शंस है उसके लिए वो मेंशन करते हैं कि एसएससी इज एलिजिबल फॉर 30% डिडक्शन और 50% डिडक्शन. सो फॉर 80 IA to IE sections, so you should not be worrying about them, but rest of the sections you should be remembering the section number, then the purpose of the section, conditions, and finally the quantum of deduction. So that is the reason why this deduction chapter is very important. Now, after computation of income, the next part which comes into picture is how the taxes are paid. Now, Government of India has made various ways of collection of taxes, and that will include uh, uh, self-assessment tax payment, then advance tax payment, then TDS, and finally, when you are paying taxes as per the notice which is sent by the department. So considering these aspects, you have to consider means considering these aspects, you have to understand that when the income will become taxable and when the income means how the tax computation would be done. So that part you have to consider in uh, the next chapter, that is TDS, advanced tax. And if you observe, as far as taxation paper is concerned, every year the pattern doesn't remain same. because you know the syllabus is quite huge. So what they do is every attempt they select certain chapters and ask the question. TDS again, it happened like a few attempts. They're asking questions of about 6 to 8 marks. Like they're asking a question that they will give you several transactions and you will be asked to calculate whether TDS is required. So, like I told you about deductions under Chapter 6A, for TDS chapter also, it is essential that you should remember the section number, then purpose of the means purpose of the section, and minimum amount up to which the TDS is not required, and most importantly what is the rate of TDS. So that calculation, or how much TDS is required to be deducted, when it is required to be paid, so those things we will learn in TDS chapter. So again, uh, TDS on salary and TDS on other heads. So if there is a question on TDS on salary, there will be a full-fledged question. And if it is TDS about other payments, then obviously they will give you multiple transactions and you will be asked to find out whether TDS is required. Again, if the main question, like 7 8 marks question, is not asked, then in case of MCQs, they can cover up this part. They can ask you whether tax will be deducted for this particular transaction. Next part is advance tax. So as far as advance tax is concerned, you should consider whether advance tax is required to be paid by the assessee. And if it is required to be paid, then how many installments? So you know, assessee is required to pay 4 installments: 15 June, September, December, and March. So with this basic consideration, the next part which will be there for finals is computation of interest, and which is very interesting, at the same time important part for finals, because couple of times it has happened that they have asked a question on uh, computation of advance tax installment and interest, and that question was about 8 marks. So it is kind of good coverage as far as exams are concerned, but again it is not fixed that every attempt they will ask a question on advance taxes. All right, then once this entire thing is done, once you have calculated your taxes deducted at source, you have paid advance tax installment, then the part comes into picture is return of income uh, and assessment procedure, which is a theory part, but which is important from the examination perspective, because like I told you, in FM there is one question on theory. Likewise, in taxation also there is a question on theory, and wherein many times case study based questions are asked. So does it mean you need to by heart all those case laws? Not required or not necessary. See, once you are thorough with the syllabus first, then you can consider the case studies, because writing the case law or quoting the case law is not going to be very important. What is important is you should know the tax provision. If possible, remember the section, then quote the correct section. Then, very importantly, apply the provision correctly. So if you do that, then out of 4, you can say 2.5 marks are sure. If at all you quote TDS, or sorry, if at all you quote the case law, then 3 marks or something more which you can get from the paper. But most importantly, what is necessary is you should know the provision, you should know to come to a right conclusion. So that's the reason why make your income tax concepts very clear, so that you can give the exams with a lot of confidence and guarantee that whatever question is asked, you will be able to solve. So when the case study based questions are asked, they are hitting questions on return of income and assessment procedure part, wherein they ask you whether the action of assessee is correct, or whether the action of assessing officer is correct, or they can ask you to give you suggestion that whether assessee should file an appeal, or whether assessee should go for revision of order. So that part we have to study in assessment procedure and return of income. So make the concepts clear with these chap with the reference to these chapters, so that uh, in exams you can deal with the theory questions properly. Then when the assessing officer passes the order, you may or may not be satisfied with the order, and therefore we have to study the next part, that is appellate proceedings. Appellate proceedings is again a theory part wherein we will study the process as to how the assessee will approach income tax officers when he is not satisfied with the order. So he will file an application for rectification, he will go to CIT appeals, he will go for uh, revision of orders. So various options are available, and we will study different levels of hierarchy. If you're not satisfied at commissioner levels, then tribunal levels, then high court level, and finally Supreme Court level. So how this entire assessment proceedings are taking place, so that we'll study in this chapter. Again, it is important from theory perspective. They can ask you case study based questions on appellate proceedings chapter. Next chapter is search, seizure, and block assessment and settlement commission. So another two theory chapters for your syllabus, wherein in case of search seizure, you must have heard about search seizure, wherein the income tax department will come to the assessee's house or his office, and he will try to get the information, and whatever black or undisclosed income that would be seized by the department, and that will be taken with them, and then his income will be assessed and final tax will be computed. So that part we have to study in search, seizure, and block assessment part. Here, the next part which you have to consider is how this entire assessment procedure would take place. कि सर्च के लिए रिक्वायरमेंट क्या क्या है, सर्च के लिए सर्च वारंट लगेगा क्या, या कभी सीजर कर सकते हैं, या फिर ब्लॉक असेसमेंट का मतलब क्या है. So those theory part or theory concepts we have to study in this chapter, and also you can expect case study based questions here. Then you have settlement commission. Now, as far as settlement commission is concerned, it is not under the table settlement. It is official way of settling the case of the assessee, wherein the assessee will approach income tax department wherever the case is pending with the income tax authorities, and then the department will evaluate your income, and then uh, uh, whatever is the tax liabilities computed, that will be collected from the assessee. Only savior for the assessee is he is saved from the prosecution proceedings, and the officer may reduce the penalty amount. So how that settlement is actually going to take place, or what are the consequences, that part we have to study in settlement commission or settlement cases. Again, you can expect case study based questions there also. Then next chapter is uh, assessment of various entities. Now here, uh, importantly, you have to study assessment of individual, HUF, then partnership forms, LLPs, then company, and several other assessees. So in intermediate, we have studied how to compute income, but now we have to study according to the type of person as to how the income will be determined and how the taxes will be computed. So we have to study for each category of person, individual, HUF, AOP, BOI, as to how we are going to compute the income and tax liability for different categories of people. Huh? So all these parts we have to study for each of the person. So there may be a question for individual, there may be a question of firm or a company. But according to the type of question, you have to compute, according to the nature of person, you have to compute income and also the compute tax liability. In this chapter, we are going to study one more very important part, that is AMT and MAT. that is alternate minimum tax or minimum alternate tax. Now, some of you must be aware for a company, the MAT provisions are applicable, and for rest of the categories of assessees, the other provisions, that is AMT provisions, are applicable. So this part you haven't studied before, so we will study that part at AMT part to bit of extent you have studied at intermediate, but I'm sure you must not be remembering that part because many students don't do it. Secondly, those who do it, again there is a time gap, so there is a tendency to forget. So we will do that part, and obviously at intermediate level there was not expected, a student was not expected to solve questions on that. So that part we will study at final level as to how AMT computation and MAT calculations are done. Hmm? Okay. Then you have international taxation. As per the syllabus, it is mentioned that for international taxation, 30 marks are devoted. But as I usually say, don't rely on this percentage of breakup which is given by the institute, because institute is not uh, bound to follow these set of marks, because in the first attempt itself, 2016 syllabus first attempt itself, it happened that students were well prepared with international taxation because it's not very difficult. If you consider it practically, then yes, practically you have to study so many aspects with reference to different countries. You have to study the agreement. That is bit a different part, or that is a bit of analysis and other technical knowledge is required. But as far as syllabus is concerned, it is comparatively easier part if you are clear with the basic concepts of computation of income and tax liability. Because if your those concepts are clear, then handling international taxation would be bit on a easier side. So first attempt, I remember it was only 5 mark question which was asked on international taxation, and obviously rest 95 marks were covered from different chapters. Later on, it never happened. Like every attempt, they asked questions about 25 to 30 marks. That was a fixed pattern, but there is no guarantee. So you keep in mind that okay, it may be asked for 30 marks, but it can be asked for lower marks, or it can, like अभी तक increase नहीं हुआ, but it can be also asked for more marks as well. But considering this fact that it can vary, so what you have to make, means what you have to be assured about is you are clear with all the chapters and you're not skipping any chapter or keeping any chapter in option. So it is good that you're doing all the chapters properly so that you can be well prepared for your examination. Hmm? So in international taxation, we have to study double taxation avoidance agreement and double taxation relief. That means when income of the person is charged to tax in two different countries, then the person is end up paying taxes twice. So that person has to be given certain benefit, and that benefit we are going to calculate in double taxation avoidance or double taxation relief. As far as exams are concerned, there is a practical question on this, and every attempt there is one question which is asked on DTAA and DTR. So it will be better if you do this chapter properly, so that in exams you won't find it difficult to deal with this specific chapter, that is double taxation relief and DTAA. But obviously, again, coming back to the roots, your computation of income part should be clear, because in DTR you are required to compute income and tax liability. So unless your provisions of heads of income deductions are not clear, you cannot uh, attempt that question correctly. All right. Then you have transfer pricing provisions. Same chapter is there for your costing as well. But but remember that costing transfer pricing and taxation transfer pricing has got no connect with each other. Transfer pricing provisions in international taxation are totally different. So these provisions will talk about when an entity is having international existence. So many times it happens, it's a group concerns. So you are having some related parties abroad, and when you deal with the related parties abroad, and there are transactions between related parties. And when there is a transaction between related party, there is a possibility that the transaction is not at the level at which it should have been, and the transaction is at for some different pricing. So in this chapter, we are going to consider that how the transfer pricing provisions will be made applicable. So how to compute the yeah, how to compute the arm's length price, and if at all there is any adjustment required, how the adjustment would take place. So again, you can expect practical questions on that, because for determination of arm's length price, there are multiple methods. So a practical question can be asked. Again, there are several background chapters, like theory chapters, like how the procedure of assessment is done in case of transfer pricing, or what is the role of transfer pricing officer. So that part we have to consider in transfer pricing provisions. Then you have advance ruling. So advance ruling is concept wherein we are going to take the opinion of income tax authorities in advance. So what we will do is we will consider, let us say I'm going to set, means let us say I'm from Canada and I'm going to set up some business in India. So when I'm going to set up some business in India, I need to know what are the tax repercussions. That means what is the tax rate? Can I avail any exemption? Or am I eligible for any deduction? And if that deduction is to be availed, what are the conditions which are required to be fulfilled? So all these chapters or all these parts we have to deal in uh, 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 when we are dealing with an international transaction. But I will not be aware or pretty much sure about what are the tax rules in India. So instead of getting in touch with any tax consultant, it is good that you approach the tax authorities and get a written opinion from them. So if you get a written opinion from them, then you are rest assured that okay, this is what uh, is said by the income tax department, and accordingly you will take your business decisions. So whether that uh, means whether that opinion is in your favor or is not in your favor, but you can make the concrete business decisions, because once you know what are the rules, then you can follow those rules. So instead of making a mistake and then suffering for it, like sometimes it happens that assessment takes a part, like uh, let us say you are filing return for previous year 2021, so that will be filed in the next year, it will be assessed in next to next year. So what happens is, if you start business, if you go on for running for 2 years and then you come to know that, let us say, I want to avail some exemption, and the officer is denying that exemption, then obviously it's a hit for the business, because the business was not prepared for not availing that exemption. So it is good to get the opinion of the authorities well in advance. So with the help of that opinion, you can carry out your business transactions properly. All right. And last part is non-resident taxation. Means for different types of non-resident businessmen, how the income will be computed, how the tax will be computed. That is the interesting part which you have to study in case of non-resident taxation. All right. So all these parts will be covered for about 30 marks. So looking at the syllabus, like looking at the contents of international taxation are not that much. So this part can give you a good score in direct taxes. So if you're targeting for 60 to 70 marks, if you target this part really well, and ensure that out of this 30, if I can score 25, 20 to 25 marks, then crossing 60 marks won't be difficult. See, it's not like it is difficult, but at the same time, it is not easy to score good marks in taxation. I'll tell you the reason behind that, because it's not like FM where majority FM or costing where majority questions are practical questions. Uh, Theory also comes into exam. Means theory questions are also asked, and even though you skip the question of 16 marks theory, pure theory question, still in different question like question number 4, ABC part. So C part they cover up theory. So you cannot completely ignore theory as far as income tax is concerned. And when you know when the theory is asked in the exam, you cannot guarantee about the marks. And therefore, it is still a good time to start with income tax. That if you start reading the provisions from beginning and you are very clear with the concepts, so you can attempt the theory questions also properly. So keep that in mind and start studying the uh, theory aspects about the income tax also. So if your theory concepts are also clear, then you can score good amount of marks in income tax. All right. And apart from that, there are few other chapters like uh, equalization levy. So equalization levy is a concept for those entities who are not having a fixed place of business in India, but through internet or through online mode they are operating. So there are many, like in case of YouTube advertisements, you might have seen that you uh, play the video, in between there will be an advertisement, and which for which the person is paid, like the channel, YouTube channel is paid for that. So when we're talking about these videos or international advertisements, so they are earning certain revenues from India. So if a person is earning income in India without having the physical presence, then how to catch hold of these people? And therefore, department introduced the concept of equalization levy. So we will understand the concept of equalization levy as to how it is charged, when you are required to collect taxes, how those taxes are to be deposited. So that is the part which we'll study in equalization levy. Then you have tax planning and tax avoidance and tax management. So this chapter will talk about what is the difference between tax planning, tax evasion, and tax management. So we will not study as a separate chapter, but in each of the head, like in business, in salary, in capital gains, or in assessment of individuals or companies, at that point of time, we'll study different aspects about how a person is going to use the tax provisions for saving tax liability. That means whatever benefit of deductions, exemptions are given, how effectively we can use them. So we'll study on these chapters, and summary of that you can see is a planning on tax. You can say it's a tax planning or tax management. Okay. Then there is an act couple of years which came into picture was Black Money Act, wherein the person who is having black income, means which is black income is basically the income which is not being disclosed to tax department. So you have to disclose that income and pay taxes on that, so it becomes a white income. So it is a self, you can say, declaration by the SSC side that how I have not disclosed certain set of income, and disclosing that, paying the tax liability, and getting rid of the mark of a black money. So that is the best part which income tax brought in. But uh, this provisions came into picture about 2 to 3 years ago. So there is less likely to be a chance of questions on this chapter. And lastly, the provisions with reference to GAR, that is general anti-avoidance rules. So certain ruling with reference to international taxation and global arrangements about how the uh, tax avoidance can be avoided globally. So general anti-avoidance rules we will study at end. As far as exams are concerned, first 11 chapters are very much important. Last few chapters, like 12 to 15, you study them. Maybe a couple of questions or maybe MCQs can be asked on those chapters. But yes, tax planning, tax management, you cannot separate from the other chapters, because end of the day it is a question on computation of income. So you can consider it there or as a separate chapter. So there can be a question on this practical question, but 12, 14, 15, there can be only bit of small theory questions or MCQ based questions, right? So keep this syllabus in mind and then slowly start studying with the syllabus, and take my word seriously that right from beginning, if you focus on income tax concepts clearly, and go with the pace of the classes, then definitely I'm sure that you will cross minimum 60 to 65 marks. आगे तो आपके पास पूरा आसमान पड़ा है, that if you study in very much detail, then you can go to 70, 80 marks as well. Obviously 90, 95 is very difficult. Unless it is online exam and you have to select the multiple options, then it is possible. But otherwise, if it is a theory and practical based questions, you can keep a target of minimum 60 marks in this paper as well. All right. Hmm? So at least everyone is clear with the basic background as to what things we have to study in final exams.
Yes.
Yes.
Yes,
Yes,
Hmm?
sir.
Okay. If you want to note this down, quickly note down this. Meanwhile, I will share the file for the first chapter. Hmm? Let us start with the basic concepts in income tax. So, as you are aware that income tax was introduced in 1961, but every year there will be certain changes. So it came into force with effect from 1961, that is assessment year 62, 63. So it has got several 298 sections and 14 schedules. And every year, if you observe, there is financial budget which is presented in Feb, and that is approved by the parliament, and then it becomes a finance act, right? So when the budget is presented, the budget will talk about the provisions of a specific financial year, and according to that provision, what everyone is required to do is, according to the latest changes, you have to compute the income. Huh? Now tell me, for your examination, which finance act would be made applicable? कौन सा finance act आपके लिए applicable है? Yes.
is it 20?
Sorry. सुनाई नहीं दिया, बोलिए. Okay. As far as your exams are concerned, the act which is applicable is the Finance Act, which was presented in last year, that is Finance Act 2020, which was applicable or which indicated the provisions for the previous year 2020 2021. So always remember, when the act is presented in the parliament, like last Feb, when the act is presented, it was for the next year, that is previous year 2021. And the basic reason is obviously, you can play chess only when you know the rules. So that is how, when you know the rules of income taxation, then you can accordingly plan your income and plan your taxes, right? ऐसा नहीं हो सकता कि ईयर खत्म होने के बाद उन्होंने बोला कि लॉटरी पे 40% टैक्स, सैलरी एग्जाम, ऐसा तो नहीं बोलेंगे. So what they have to do is, they have to inform the assessees well in advance that how the income will be assessed for a particular previous year. So even though the next act, which is Finance Act 2021, also has come into picture, but Finance Act 21 will give the provisions for the next year, that is previous year 2021 and 22. So obviously that is not applicable for your exams, but yes, uh, due to corona and due to the other reasons, what budget 2021 has done is, they has brought in certain provisions with reference to last year. So we will also have to take those provisions into consideration as to what provisions will be applicable for Finance Act 2020. But rest of the provisions will be made applicable for previous year 21-22, and that is not there for your exams, that will be applicable for next year. So Finance Act 2021 is applicable for the June and December 2022 exams, and not 21 exams. All right. So accordingly, we have to study Finance Act 2020, which will give us the provisions with reference to previous year 2020-21. Apart from Finance Act, there are certain circulars and notifications which gives the clarity to the uh, people as to how the provisions has to be made applicable, or circulars will give you which are issued by the CBDT from time to time to clarify the problem means to specific sorry which will talk about specific problems and clarify doubts regarding the scope and meaning of the provisions. Always remember, as far as circulars and notifications are concerned, these are binding for the tax authorities and not on the assessees. So that is kind of explanatory point. So for taking certain decision, what is important is case law as compared to circulars and notification. So notification is giving you the idea about what is the uh, explanation, but you have to go to the basics. You have to study what is the provision, what are the rules which has been given, and then you can consider what is the circular and notification. Hmm. Now, when income tax act is made, it has to be understood from the perspective of uh, its literal meaning and sometimes its general meaning. So that's the reason why we have to consider the rules of interpretation. So rules of interpretation are broadly bifurcated into uh, three different categories. Sorry, yeah, different categories, five different categories. One is rule of literal interpretation. Literal interpretation means whatever provision is given, so that provision has to be adhered to. So whatever is the literal meaning of the words, that should be considered as it is. So according to the literal interpretation, you have to consider, but sometimes it's not always that whatever literal interpretation you have to consider. Sometimes you have to go beyond and consider what is the intention. Hmm? So sometimes literal interpretation is important, and sometimes you have to go to the basics, go to the fundamental aspect of the provision and then interpret the provision. Like many times we say that don't go with the words of the person, go with his you can say the way he has spoken the words or the way he has reacted. So we consider that part as well. So intention is more important than words. So that part is considered with the harmonious construction. So sometimes when the literal interpretation is not giving you appropriate answer, then you have to consider the rules of harmonious construction, wherein construction of the words provide uh, creates inconsistency and repugnancy between various sections and parts of the statute. So that uh, harmonious interpretation between the sections will tell you exactly what is the meaning. Literal, instead of going with the words, we will understand what is the crux of the provision. Then mischief rule. So mischief rule is originated earlier in 16th century, but it is commonly known as Hayden's rule or purposive construction. So under this rule, position before the amendment or enactment of the act is examined to find out the mischief sought to be remedied to determine the rationale of the remedy. So for example, when the HRA exemption is given, so department also considers that what kind of mischief means, see, you know always that income tax formulates certain rules, फिर उसको avoid करने के लिए लोग और कुछ ideas play करते हैं. तो वो avoid करने के लिए they will think in advance that what kind of mischief is possible. So accordingly they will formulate certain rulings. So they will check what is the existing law, hmm, what is the mischief that can be taken place, and then what is the remedy for that. Okay, लोग क्या कर रहे हैं अभी, लोग फेक बता रहे हैं कि लोग बता रहे हैं कि मैंने मेरे पेरेंट्स को रेंट पे कर दिया, या फिर उनको मतलब मम्मी को रेंट पे कर दिया, फिर डैडी को रेंट पे कर दिया, हाँ, एंड देन पीपल आर गेटिंग एचआरए एग्जम्पशंस. तो इसके ऊपर सोल्यूशन क्या है, तो सोल्यूशन इज डिपार्टमेंट इज स्लोली ब्रिंगिंग that if you see certain cases beyond certain limit, about 1 लाख के ऊपर आप रेंट पे कर रहे हो, तो उस केस में डिपार्टमेंट आस्क यू फॉर द पैन डिटेल्स ऑफ द एसएससी. व्हाट हैपेंस इज पीपल जस्ट शो कि मैंने डैड को रेंट पे कर दिया, आप एचआर एग्जम्पशन लेते हो लेकिन डैड इनकम बताते ही नहीं है. तो इफ यू आर क्लेमिंग एग्जम्पशन, देन डैड हैज टू शो दैट दैट इज हिज इनकम, राइट? So that is not been found out because there is no connection. Income tax cannot trace it up. So slowly income tax is brought in for specific categories that you have to mention the PAN while claiming the exemption. So obviously if you are mentioning the PAN, so in that case you will be caught hold. तो वो ट्रांजैक्शन पे आपको कंपलसरी क्या करना पड़ेगा, वो पर्सन का पैन दिखाना पड़ेगा. एंड पैन दिखाने के बाद ऑब्वियसली इनकम टैक्स वो पैन के लिए चेक करेंगे कि उसने वो हाउस प्रॉपर्टी के अगेंस्ट इनकम बताया है या नहीं डिस्क्लोज किया, एंड दैट पर्सन विल बी caught for it. So that is how this rule is made applicable, that department considers that what is the chances of mischief and how what can be the remedy for that. Hmm? Yeah. Then golden rule, it allows a judge to depart from the word's normal meaning in order to avoid the absurd result. So it is a compromise between the literal rule and mischief rule. Like the literal rule gives the literal meaning of the word, and sometimes it is irrational results can be obtained from that. So sometimes you have to go and understand what is the uh, reasoning behind that, and accordingly you have to interpret the rule. And also, like the connection between golden rule and harmonious rule is that you try to avoid the uh, differences which has been given by two different sections. Like sometimes two different sections contradict each other, so then which section should be considered or which should be given more importance, and then this golden rule and harmonious construction comes into picture. They try to connect two sections, and they go with the they go to the crux of the provision, and then they interpret what should be the conclusion or what should be the literal meaning in a specific case. Okay, then principle of beneficial construction. Obviously, a court finds out there are two possible ways of constructing the meaning, then which is most beneficial to the taxpayer should be adopted. This principle is widely used in the case of interpretation of fiscal laws. Hmm. Lastly, rules of ejusdem generis is used when particular words pertaining to a class, category, or genus are followed by the general words. In that case, general words are constructed as limited to the things of the same kind. तो वहां पे वो specific words use करेंगे. जैसे बहुत बार ऐसे मतलब आप income tax में words देखोगे, assessee or the person having income uh, not exceeding the minimum amount which is chargeable to tax. हाँ? अब ये इतना अमाउंट इतना बड़ा चीज बोलने से अच्छा आप सीधा बोल सकते हैं जिसका इनकम बेसिक एग्जाम्पशन के ऊपर है. बट वो वैसा नहीं बोलेंगे. दे विल यूज अ स्पेसिफिक टर्मिनोलॉजी दैट द पर्सन हुज इनकम हैज crossed the minimum amount which is not chargeable to tax. So there are certain specific wordings which has to be followed and which has to be consistently adopted. All right. Huh? Now, coming back to very important aspect, that who is an assessee and person. So obviously, you know, person will include everyone like individual, HUF, company, firm, association of persons, local authority, body, corporate. And assessee means the person who is paying taxes. So कोई भी person जो खुद tax pay कर रहा है, या फिर the person who wants to claim losses, or the person who is responsible for paying taxes for someone else, or the person who is uh, supposed to uh, mm, comply with certain provisions of the Income Tax Act. So all these people would be classified or will be considered as the assessee. Previous year assessment year, you know, there is no much thing has to be discussed about it. But yeah, in general, you can remember previous year is the year in which you generate the income. So let us say previous year 2020-21. And उसका assessment year क्या होगा? Immediately next year, that is assessment year 21-20. All right. Okay. Now, see notes. What I have done is certain part I have highlighted, so you can consider that this part would be the important part out of the chapter. So this part has to be studied thoroughly. So I'll be sharing the notes after the lecture. But remember that whatever I have highlighted, that is the important part out of the chapter. Okay. This part you have studied at intermediate level, but can you remember this part? Previous year for undisclosed sources of income. Hmm? Like in case of certain categories of income, your income will be assessed to tax, considering it as undisclosed income. So it will include cash credits, unexplained investment, unexplained money, then investment not disclosed, unexplained expenditure, and amount borrowed or repaid in case of hundi. अभी ये इनकम क्या है वो हम लोग एक बार क्विकली देख लेते हैं. एंड सिंस इट इज अनडिस्क्लोज्ड इनकम, इसके ऊपर टैक्स एक स्पेशल रेट से लगता है, वो आपको टैक्स रेट पता होना चाहिए. So how the tax computation is done for all these categories of 6 income is that, generally it is slab wise taxation, but for tax on above mentioned income, so here the tax rate is 60% plus surcharge at the rate of 25% plus health and education cess at the rate of 4%. So you can imagine how much will be the total tax. 60. तो suppose undisclosed income आप पकड़ लो 60 rupees. Sorry, let us say undisclosed income is 100 rupees. उसके ऊपर टैक्स कितना आएगा? 60%, मतलब 60 rupees, right? इसके ऊपर सरचार्ज कितना आएगा? 60 का 25% कितना आएगा? कितना आएगा बताओ? 15, करेक्ट. टोटल 75. इसके ऊपर आपको 4% ऐड करना है. तो हेल्थ एंड एजुकेशन से कितना होगा? इसके ऊपर 4%, कितना आएगा वो? 3 rupees, correct. So now you can understand that if there is undisclosed income of 100, उसके ऊपर टैक्स कितना आएगा? 78. So you can imagine how much is the tax computation or how much is the tax imposed on undisclosed income. ये तो सिर्फ टैक्स है. इसके अलावा पेनल्टी, इंटरेस्ट, वो सब अलग आएगा ही, लेकिन टैक्स कितना आएगा? बेसिकली 78 rupees for 100. So it is like a 78%. एंड रिमेंबर, जनरली सरचार्ज के लिए हम लोग कंडीशन क्या देखते हैं, आज देखेंगे हम लोग कि एक स्पेसिफिक लेवल के ऊपर आपका इनकम गया तो आपको सरचार्ज पे करना पड़ेगा, राइट? बट अनडिस्क्लोज इनकम में ऐसा कुछ नहीं है. आपका अनडिस्क्लोज इनकम 10 लाख, 20 लाख, 30 लाख, कितना भी रहने दो, उसके ऊपर आपको सीधा कितना टैक्स आएगा? 78% का टैक्स आएगा. आर यू अंडरस्टैंडिंग दिस?
Yes, sir.
Yes.
Yes, sir.
So now we will understand which type of income is classified here. Cash credit. Cash credit माने, अभी देखो आपके पास कैश है, तो वो कैश के लिए आपके पास कुछ तो सोर्स होना चाहिए कि जिसके थ्रू आपको कैश रिसीव हुआ. डू यू एग्री? राइट. तो किसी भी पर्सन के पास अनएक्सप्लेन्ड कैश रहेगा या फिर अमाउंट उसके बुक्स में दिखता रहेगा कि ये उसको कैश मिला. सो whatever amount is received in cash towards regular expenditure or capital expenditure या towards share capital, किसी भी नेचर ऑफ एक्सपेंस के लिए आपके पास कैश किसी ने डिपॉजिट किया या फिर कैश किसी ने रखा है, उसका सोर्स आपको एक्सप्लेन करने आना चाहिए. इफ यू आर इन अ पोजीशन टू एक्सप्लेन द सोर्स ऑफ इनकम, then there is no problem. But if you cannot explain the source of the particular income, then that transaction will be liable for taxes. So remember this part, as far as cash credits are concerned, whenever you are getting the whenever you are having the cash transactions and it is recorded in the books of accounts, you should know from where that cash has come into picture. And अगर आप लोगों ने उसका source explain नहीं किया, then that income will be taxable at the rate of 78%. Likewise, unexplained investment. Now see, आपने basically 11th या 12th standard में इकोनॉमिक्स का फंडामेंटल रूल सीखा रहेगा that इकोनॉमिक्स में Economics, what economics says, first there will be income. इनकम में से हम लोग एक्सपेंसेस लेस करेंगे, फिर होगा सेविंग्स, एंड सेविंग्स में से मैं सर्टेन अमाउंट इन्वेस्ट कर दूं. मतलब इट डजंट हैपन दैट एक्सपेंडिचर के बाद पूरा अमाउंट आप इन्वेस्ट कर दो. सो वॉट एवर अमाउंट यू हैव अर्न, उसमें से खर्चा करने के बाद जो बचा वो अमाउंट में से आप इन्वेस्टमेंट करोगे. डू यू एग्री?
Yes.
राइट. सो इफ यू आर हैविंग एनी इन्वेस्टमेंट, तो उसके लिए आपका इनकम प्रोपोर्शनेटली होना चाहिए. राइट. So if you do not have the proper level of income, can you have investment possible?
No.
No, right? So I'll give you an example. It's a real life example wherein we were filing a return for a director, and वो director का salary about 55 to 60 lakhs था annually, and he used to file return for each of the year, and वो बराबर से disclose करता था, and everything was fine. His wife was housewife and she was not actually earning specific income, like investment से छोटा मोटा income उसका था, but it was still not taxable. Surprisingly, we got a notice for the director's wife and not the director. अभी usually क्या होना चाहिए, जिसका 55-60 लाख income है उसके लिए डिपार्टमेंट क्वेश्चन करना चाहिए. उसकी वाइफ तो हाउसवाइफ है, उसको क्यों नोटिस आया? So when the notice came from the tax department, the notice clearly mentioned that please explain the source of income for the following investment. And they did not stop there. They give all the particulars. वो notice में उसका breakup आया कि उसने किस दिन कौन से म्यूचुअल फंड में कितना अमाउंट इन्वेस्ट किया था. सो पूरा डेट वाइज ब्रेकअप दिया था, ये दिन ये म्यूचुअल फंड में इतना इतना इन्वेस्टमेंट किया, एंड ऐसा लगभग उसका पूरे साल में 13 लाख 13 या 13.5 लाख के बीच में इन्वेस्टमेंट है. नाउ डू यू थिंक देयर इज अ रीजन टू डाउट कि जो लेडी रिटर्न ही फाइल नहीं कर रही है वो सीधा 13.5 लाख का एक साल में म्यूचुअल फंड इन्वेस्टमेंट कर रही है? Is there any reason to believe that, or is there any reason to take doubt about this transaction? Yes, correct है क्या नहीं इनकम टैक्स का? सो इनकम टैक्स का एक्शन करेक्ट था कि इनकम टैक्स ने उसको नोटिस भेजा आस्किंग हर कि ये पैसा किधर से है. अभी लकीली एक्चुअली क्या हुआ था, द डायरेक्टर यूज्ड टू कीप इन्वेस्टमेंट इन हिज वाइफ्स नेम. तो दिखने में क्या दिखा कि वाइफ के नाम पे पैसा इन्वेस्ट हुआ, लेकिन वो पैसा किसका था? डायरेक्टर का था. अभी देखो, इसके लिए इनकम टैक्स को कुछ ऑब्जेक्शन नहीं है. इनकम टैक्स ने सिर्फ क्या क्वेश्चन पूछा लेडी को कि प्लीज एक्सप्लेन सोर्स ऑफ द इनकम. तो शी प्रूव्ड कि ये मेरे डायरेक्ट मतलब ये मेरे हस्बैंड का अमाउंट है, एंड वो रिटर्न फाइल कर रहे हैं. वो भी इंपॉर्टेंट है, ऐसा नहीं वो भी रिटर्न फाइल नहीं करते तो उसको पकड़ लेते डिपार्टमेंट. अभी दैट पर्सन वाज फाइलिंग रिटर्न, इसके लिए द डिपार्टमेंट वाज सेटिस्फाइड दैट इट इज इन्वेस्टमेंट आउट ऑफ हस्बैंड्स इनकम, एंड देयरफॉर डिपार्टमेंट डिड नॉट टेक एनी ऑब्जेक्शन. एंड वो उनको प्रूव करना पड़ा कि ये पैसा उसके बैंक अकाउंट में पहले डायरेक्टर के बैंक अकाउंट में है, फिर उसने वाइफ के नाम पे ट्रांसफर किया, एंड फिर वाइफ ने इन्वेस्टमेंट कर दिया. तो वो प्रूव होने के बाद डिपार्टमेंट ने एग्री किया, एंड शी वाज लेफ्ट विदाउट एनी टैक्स और पेनल्टी. बट इमेजिन करो इफ द पर्सन इज नॉट एबल टू प्रूव कि उसने एक पैसा इन्वेस्टमेंट किधर से किया, तो जो भी इन्वेस्टमेंट रहता, लाइक सपोज इन दिस एग्जांपल उसने कुछ भी प्रूफ दिया नहीं रहता, तो उसका जो 13.5 लाख इन्वेस्टमेंट था दैट वुड हैव बीन कंसिडर्ड एज हर इनकम, एंड उसके ऊपर उसको 78% टैक्स पे करना पड़ता है, व्हिच इज वेरी डेंजरस. नाउ यू इमेजिन कि 13.5 लाख का इन्वेस्टमेंट किया, उसमें से 78% टैक्स पे करना है, तो ऑब्वियसली आपको इन्वेस्टमेंट पहले सेल करना पड़ेगा, एंड फिर वो जाके आपको टैक्स पे करना पड़ेगा. So that's the reason why the department has kept this harsh provisions, because the person should not make any undisclosed investment. All right. Same rule applies for unexplained money, bullion, jewelry and valuables. तो मेरे पास अगर फर्नीचर है लेकिन वुडन फर्नीचर नहीं, उस पर मैंने प्रीशियस स्टोन्स अटैच किया है. मेरे पास एथनिक कुर्ता है लेकिन कुर्ते पे मैंने गोल्डन थ्रेड लगाया, देन डायमंड्स उसके ऊपर अटैच किया है. तो ऐसा सब रहेगा, ऐसा नहीं है, मैं ऐसे एग्जांपल के लिए दे रहा हूँ. तो ऐसा अगर रहेगा किसी के पास, तो हम लोग क्या बोलेंगे कि अरे इसके पास ये जो एसेट्स है, ये इसका पैसा किधर से है? तो डिपार्टमेंट हैज राइट टू क्वेश्चन. सी डिपार्टमेंट डजंट हैव एनी प्रॉब्लम इफ यू आर हैविंग ज्वेलरी, आपके पास 10 किलो का भी ज्वेलरी, डिपार्टमेंट को प्रॉब्लम नहीं है। ओनली थिंग इज यू शुड बी एबल टू प्रूव कि ये पैसा किधर से आया जिससे मैंने ज्वेलरी लिया, या फिर ये ज्वेलरी बेसिकली किधर से, ऐसा भी हो सकता है किसी ने आपको गिफ्ट कर दिया, तो वो आपको प्रूव करना पड़ेगा कि इसका सोर्स किधर से है। एंड अगर सोर्स एक्सप्लेन हो गया तो आप बच जाओगे, आपको टैक्स पे करने की जरूरत नहीं है। लेकिन अगर आपने सोर्स एक्सप्लेन नहीं किया तो आपको क्या करना पड़ेगा, टैक्सेस पे करना पड़ेगा। ऑल राइट, देन अमाउंट नॉट कंप्लीटली डिस्क्लोज, सेम थिंग लाइक 13 लाख का इन्वेस्टमेंट उसने दिखाया ही नहीं। दूसरा केस हो सकता है कि इन्वेस्टमेंट 13 लाख का है, उसने सिर्फ बताया 3 लाख का इन्वेस्टमेंट। तो इन्वेस्टमेंट नॉट फुल्ली डिस्क्लोज, तो जो अनडिस्क्लोज इन्वेस्टमेंट रहेगा उसको वो सोर्स एक्सप्लेन करने को बोलेंगे, एंड वो सोर्स एक्सप्लेन नहीं हुआ तो वापस टैक्स कैलकुलेट होगा एट द रेट ऑफ 78%। नेक्स्ट इज अनएक्सप्लेन्ड एक्सपेंडिचर। हाँ, अभी देखो अगेन इकोनॉमिक्स का रूल क्या था, पहले इनकम, फिर एक्सपेंस, फिर सेविंग एंड इन्वेस्टमेंट। तो अगर आप कुछ बड़ा अमाउंट खर्च कर रहे हो तो उसमें डिपार्टमेंट ऑलवेज हैव अ आई ऑन द एसएससीज हु आर स्पेंडिंग गुड अमाउंट। हाँ, देखो अभी तो सबका शादी एकदम छोटे से ही हो रहा है, धूमधाम नहीं हो रहा है, लेकिन देयर वर केसेस जहां पे डिपार्टमेंट ऑलवेज कीप एन आई कि जहां पे जो शादी में 1,500 2,000 या 5,000 लोग आते हैं, एंड लुकिंग एट द वेडिंग द पर्सन ओवरऑल गेट्स एन आइडिया कि ये वेडिंग पे कितना खर्च हुआ रहेगा। सो डिपार्टमेंट कीप्स एन आई ऑन द पर्सन स्पेंडिंग, कि अगर एक पैसा पर्सन एक्सपेंस कर रहा है कि उसने शादी में सपोज 5 करोड़ का खर्च किया, ऐसे उसको लग गया कि शादी में 2,000 लोग आए थे, या फिर वेडिंग कार्ड से भी आपको पता चलता है, लाइक देर आर वेडिंग कार्ड्स ऑफ 50 रुपीज एंड देर आर वेडिंग कार्ड्स ऑफ 20,000 30,000 रुपीज ऑल्सो। एंड उसमें फिर कैसे रहता है, फिर वो गोल्ड का कुछ पेंडेंट उसमें रख देंगे, या फिर उसमें कुछ और डेकोरेशन कर देंगे, या फिर उसमें कुछ गिफ्ट आइटम्स उसके अंदर ही रहेगा इनविटेशन में। हाँ, तो ऐसे भी वेडिंग्स होते हैं, या फिर फॉरेन विजिट्स, पीपल फ्रीक्वेंटली ट्रैवल अब्रॉड, साल में 5 5 6 6 बार ऐसे ही पिकनिक के लिए आप जाके आए, तो ये जो आप खर्चा कर रहे हो तो उसके लिए आपका इनकम किधर से आ रहा है। तो अगर पर्सन शादी पे 5 करोड़ खर्च कर रहा है, फिर फॉरेन ट्रैवल पे 30 40 लाख रुपया खर्च कर रहा है, तो ये पैसे का सोर्स किधर से है। सो डिपार्टमेंट जाके चेक करेगा उसका रिटर्न, तो रिटर्न में अगर उसने बताया कि यस उसका इनकम ऑलरेडी है, लाइक पर्सन इज हैविंग इनकम ऑफ 2 करोड़ एंड उसने फॉरेन ट्रैवल पे 20 लाख खर्च किया रहेगा, तो उसके ऊपर डिपार्टमेंट ऑब्जेक्शन नहीं लेगा, बिकॉज डिपार्टमेंट विल कंसिडर दैट कि ये दिस इज क्वाइट पॉसिबल, लाइक इनकम 2 करोड़ है, उसके बाद 20 30 लाख का खर्चा इज पॉसिबल। बट अगर पर्सन डिस्क्लोज कर रहा है उसका इनकम है 3 लाख एंड वो खर्चा कर रहा है 20 लाख का 30 लाख का, तो दैट बिकम्स अ क्वेश्चन मार्क। एंड द सैड पार्ट इज, अगर आपने एक्सपेंडिचर का सोर्स नहीं बताया तो भी 78% टैक्स लगाना है। हाँ, सो दैट मीन्स अगर आपका फॉरेन ट्रेवल का खर्चा है 40 लाख एंड उसमें से आपने कुछ 15 लाख का एक्सप्लेनेशन दे दिया, तो बैलेंस 25 लाख जो ऑलरेडी खर्च हो चुका, उसके ऊपर भी आपको क्या करना पड़ेगा, 78% से टैक्स पे करना पड़ेगा। ऑल राइट, lastly, amount borrowed or repaid in hundi. Are you aware about what is hundi? Hundi loan taken or repaid? Are you aware what is hundi loan? No? Okay, so what is hundi loan is, I'll give you an idea so you will understand. आप जब भी ट्रेन से ट्रेवल करते थे पहले, हाँ, तो आपने ट्रेन में से एडवर्टाइजमेंट देखा रहेगा, ऊपर लगा रहता है ना, पर्सनल लोन, लोन इन 10 minutes विदाउट एनी डॉक्यूमेंट, लोन सैंक्शन इन 5 minutes। हाँ, तो ये सब कैसे है, दीज आर अनऑथोराइज्ड वेज ऑफ गिविंग द लोन। ये कुछ बैंक या फाइनेंशियल इंस्टीट्यूशन नहीं है, ये पर्सनल फाइनेंसिंग है, जहाँ पे उनका रिकवरी मेजर्स अलग रहता है। हाँ, तो you will definitely get a loan in 10 minutes or 1 minute or even half an hour, or even like fraction of seconds, but they have got a different ways of recovering the amount। अगर आपने एक भी इंस्टॉलमेंट पे नहीं किया तो वो लोग आपके घर पे या आपके शॉप के ऊपर आके खड़े हो जाएंगे एंड दे विल आस्क फॉर द मनी, and you know if you don't pay the money what will happen with you, huh? So these are the unauthorized you can say ways of dealing with the money, and that is known as hundi, loan taken or repaid. And government wants to control all these transactions which are on the basis of cash transactions, हाँ? तो अभी बेसिकली देखो क्या होता है, हम लोग सर्च सीजर की बात कर रहे थे, तो जहाँ पे सर्च केस होता है, लाइक जहाँ पे इनकम टैक्स आपके ऑफिस में आके सर्च करता है, एंड आपके ऑफिस में अगर 1 करोड़ कैश मिल गया, तो डू यू थिंक दैट पर्सन विल इमीडिएटली एग्री कि हाँ ये मेरा ब्लैक इनकम है, मैं इसके ऊपर टैक्स पे करता हूँ, हाँ? ऐसा होगा पॉसिबल? नहीं, हाँ, सम ऑफ द केसेस इट मे हैपन, बट मेजोरिटी केसेस ऐसा कुछ होने वाला है नहीं, राइट? सो लोग बहाने बनाएंगे, ये मेरा कैश है ही नहीं, मुझे पता नहीं किधर से आया, हाँ? और ये मेरा नहीं, वो बाजू वाले का है, हाँ? बट आप दूसरे किसी का नाम इमीडिएटली नहीं ले सकते, बिकॉज यू विल हैव टू प्रूव कि अब बाजू वाला है या फ्रेंड है या रिलेटिव है, तो यू हैव टू शो द प्रूफ कि ये कैश उसने आपके घर पे आके रख दिया। सेकेंडली, इफ आई एम सेइंग दिस इट बिलोंग्स टू एक्स पर्सन, फ्रेंड का बोला मैंने, लेकिन फिर क्या होगा, फ्रेंड ने एक्सेप्ट भी कर लिया, लेकिन फिर इनकम टैक्स मेरे घर से उठ के उसके घर पे चला जाएगा कि अरे भाई तुम्हारे घर पे इतना कैश या तुम्हारे पास इतना 1 करोड़ कैश किधर से आया, राइट? सो what people do is people say that this is not my money, I have taken this loan from someone, हाँ? And देखो जैसे बैंकर्स में अलग अलग लेवल के बैंक्स है, वैसे मनी लेंडर्स में, ये प्राइवेट मनी लेंडर्स में भी अलग अलग लेवल के मनी लेंडर्स है जो बोलते हैं कि जो 50 करोड़ 100 करोड़ का भी लोन देते हैं, तो उसको 1 करोड़ का झूठा लोन बोलने में क्या प्रॉब्लम है? तो देर इज अ पॉसिबिलिटी दैट मैं किसी एक्स पर्सन का नाम ले लूंगा, इस पर्सन ने मुझे लोन दिया, एंड आई विल हैव अ कॉन्टैक्ट विद हिम, आई विल टेल हिम कि ऐसा ऐसा बोल दो कि इसने आपने मुझे लोन दे दिया, एंड आई विल पे यू सम कमीशन फॉर दैट। सो ऐसा अगर सामने वाली पार्टी ने बोल दिया कि हाँ मैंने उसको लोन दिया, तो मेनी टाइम्स दैट पर्सन वाज सेफ गार्डेड, उसके अगेंस्ट कुछ एक्शन ही नहीं होता था, बिकॉज अगर लोन है तो उसका इनकम है नहीं, एंड वो पर्सन तो 100 करोड़ में डील कर रहा है, तो उसके लिए 1 करोड़ तो इधर उधर एडजस्ट करना इज क्वाइट पॉसिबल, राइट? सो ये मतलब पर्सन यूज टू अवॉइड पेइंग टैक्सेस बाय यूजिंग दिस काइंड ऑफ मैनिपुलेशन। इसके लिए इनकम टैक्स ने क्या किया, इनकम टैक्स ने एक सिंपल चीज बना दिया, एंड इनकम टैक्स सेड कि अगर आपने हुंडी लोन कैश में लिया या फिर कैश में रीपे कर दिया, इट विल बिकम टैक्सेबल एज अनडिस्क्लोज सोर्स ऑफ इनकम, एंड उसके ऊपर आपको 78% टैक्स पे करना पड़ेगा। तो ये प्रोविजन होने के बाद लोगों ने बोलना ही छोड़ दिया कि मैंने इस पर्सन से लोन लिया, बिकॉज कुछ मतलब ही नहीं है, बिकॉज इवन इफ यू से दैट आई हैव टेकन लोन फ्रॉम सो एंड सो पर्सन, in spite of it is loan, it is going to become taxable. So to avoid these manipulations, department has made this point clear that if you take hundi loan or you repay hundi loan in cash, it will become taxable. All right, huh? But remember one point, suppose Mr. A is taking loan, huh? Mr. A ने एक हुंडी लोन लिया 10 लाख का, एंड 10 लाख का लोन कैश में लिया, तो उसने जब भी कैश में लिया उसको टैक्सेबल होगा, तो उसने टैक्स भर दिया। सपोज रीपेमेंट के टाइम उसने वापस कैश में रीपे कर दिया, विल दैट बी अगेन लायबल फॉर टैक्सेस? लकीली यहाँ पे डबल टैक्सेशन नहीं है, हाँ? तो अगर लोन लेते वक्त वो अमाउंट आपके हाथ में टैक्सेबल हुआ रहेगा, तो लोन रीपेमेंट के टाइम वो अमाउंट आपके हाथ में टैक्सेबल नहीं होगा। ऑल राइट, आर यू गेटिंग दिस? तो अगर लोन लेते वक्त आपको वो अमाउंट टैक्सेबल हुआ है, तो लोन रीपेमेंट के टाइम वो अमाउंट आपके हाथ में टैक्सेबल नहीं होगा। अभी हम लोग जो इनकम की बात कर रहे थे, ये स्पेसिफिक अनडिस्क्लोज्ड इनकम है जिसके ऊपर 78% टैक्स लग रहा है। बट डज इट मीन एवरी इनकम इज चार्ज टू टैक्स एट दिस रेट? ऑब्वियसली नो। So we should know that how the income is computed or how the tax is computed for different types of people. So at the end of the year, at the end of previous year 2020-21, what we'll do is we'll add all the heads of income, and then we'll compute total income, we'll give chapter 6 deduction, and then we'll compute what is net income, and then we'll start computing the tax liability. अभी टैक्स लाइबिलिटी कंप्यूट करने के लिए हमें टैक्स स्लैब्स पता होना चाहिए, हाँ? तो लेट अस अंडरस्टैंड व्हाट आर द टैक्स स्लैब्स फॉर डिफरेंट कैटेगरीज ऑफ पीपल, हाँ? So let us understand what are the tax slabs. Okay. For any individual who is resident below the age of 60 or a non-resident, and every HUF, AOP, BOI artificial jurisdictional person, for them, the tax computation is based on slab-wise taxes, except the income which is charged to tax at special rate. Special rate का हम लोग बाद में देखते हैं. For the time being, we'll focus on the income which is charged to tax at slab-wise rates. And slabs क्या है? तो up to 2.5 lakhs nil, then 2.5 lakh to 5 lakh 5%, 5 lakh to 10 lakh 20%, and above 10 lakh 30%. And on this income you will be adding education cess at the rate of 4%. तो वो कैलकुलेट कैसे करना है, तो मैं आपको एक एग्जांपल बताता हूँ. सो लेट अस से इनकम ऑफ मिस्टर अक्षय इज 18 लाख. तो 18 लाख मतलब क्या हुआ, स्लैब वाइज में 10 लाख क्रॉस कर दिया. तो 10 लाख क्रॉस कर दिया डजंट मीन कि पूरे इनकम पे आपको 30% टैक्स पे करना है. इट विल गो स्लैब वाइज. एज योर इनकम इंक्रीजेस सो योर टैक्स शुड इंक्रीज. पहले 2.5 लाख पे नो टैक्स जीरो. नेक्स्ट 2.5 lakhs. नेक्स्ट 2.5 lakhs मतलब पे हमें कैलकुलेट करना है 5%. सो 5 lakh minus 2 lakh 50,000 मतलब 2 lakh 50 पे 5% will become 12,500. अभी 10 लाख ऑलरेडी क्रॉस कर दिया, तो नेक्स्ट 5 lakh to 10 lakh, इसके ऊपर 20%. So that will become 5 lakh into 20%, that is 1 lakh. एंड 10 लाख के ऊपर कितना है, तो 10 लाख के ऊपर है 8 लाख. तो 8 लाख पे आपको टैक्स कैलकुलेट करना है 30%. सो दैट विल बिकम 2,40,000. देन विल हैव टू ऐड ऑल द फोर. ये सबको हम लोग ऐड कर देंगे. ऐड करने के बाद टोटल कितना आएगा, 3,52,500. फिर ये जो 352,500 है उसके ऊपर हमें क्या करना है, एजुकेशन सेस कंप्यूट करना है. So 352,500 into 4% will give us 14,100. And total tax फिर कितना आएगा, 3,66,600. Alright. And as you are aware, the tax and the income and the tax has to be rounded off to the nearest multiple of ₹10. तो उस हिसाब से मिस्टर अक्षय का टोटल टैक्स लायबिलिटी कितना आएगा, it will be ₹3,66,600. All right. Is everyone clear with the tax computation?
Yes, sir.
Yes.
Now let us check if you have understood or not. Okay. Mr. Viraj, जिसका income है 9,40,000, please compute tax liability for the same and tell me how much is the tax payable. All right. तो विराज का इनकम 9,40,000 है, तो उसका टैक्स कंप्यूट करो एंड मुझे बताओ इंक्लूडिंग सेस उसका टैक्स कितना है. कैलकुलेट करो एंड बताओ.
1,04,520.
ओके ओके, दो अलग अलग आंसर आया है। निधि, इज इट इंक्लूडिंग सेस और एक्सक्लूडिंग सेस? One lakh four is, I assume it is including cess, right? 1,04,520.
Yes, sir. Yes, yes.
Okay. Everyone got this answer? 1,04,520.
Yes, sir.
Yes. Let us quickly check. देखो, अब टू 5 लाख तो सेम ही रहेगा। 5 लाख के आगे क्या होगा? 9,40,000 में से हमें 5 लाख लेस करना है इंटू 20%, तो कितना आया? 88,000।
88,000.
8,000.
ओके, एंड ऑब्वियसली इसके आगे तो कुछ आएगा नहीं, बिकॉज तो टोटल ये दोनों का कितना होगा?
1,05,500.
1,05,500.
1,05,500। एंड इसके ऊपर फिर हमें क्या कंप्यूट करना है? एजुकेशन सेस। कितना है सेस?
4020.
2020।
4020.
4020। And final tax payable 104,520, right?
Yes.
Good. So everyone is clear with the basic tax computation, right? Now do one thing. Okay. मिस्टर हिमेश, जिसका इनकम है 4,40,000, उसका टैक्स कितना आएगा वो मुझे बताओ क्विकली।
सर रिबेट लेंगे तो नील आ जाएगा ना?
That's what you have to compute. Okay. Good. So hopefully you remember the rebate provisions. देखो, there is section 87A, which says, which is applicable to the resident individuals, which says that if the income of the SSC does not exceed 5 lakh, then you are eligible for a rebate. ये आप लिख रहे हो ना सब लोग?
यस सर।
हाँ, लिखते जाओ अभी, मतलब ये नोट्स में भले दूंगा, लेकिन it is good to write down this calculation. Rebate कितना मिलेगा? Lower of the following 100% of tax liability or 12,500. भले आप ये रिबेट, ये टैक्स प्रोविजंस मत लिखो, आपको नोट्स में मिल जाएगा। जो हम लोग सम सॉल्व कर रहे हैं, प्लीज नोट डाउन दो सम्स। रिबेट कितना मिलेगा इधर आपको? 12,500 और 100% ऑफ द टैक्स लाइबिलिटी विच एवर इज लेस। तो यहाँ पे हमें क्या करना पड़ेगा? अभी हिमेश का इनकम तो ऑब्वियसली 5 लाख से कम है, तो ही इज एलिजिबल फॉर द रिबेट। तो कितना रिबेट मिलेगा? देखो, उसका इनकम है 4,40,000 लेस 2,50,000 इंटू 5%, तो वो कितना आया? 3,800.
9,500.
Sorry, 9,500.
500.
All right. Now remember this part well, that rebate should be given first and then cess should be computed. हाँ, so ऐसे मत करो कि पहले आप cess ऐड कर दोगे फिर rebate दोगे. No, first हमें क्या करना है? Less rebate under section 87A. हाँ, अभी rebate कितना मिलेगा? ₹12,500 और tax
Whichever is less.
whichever is less. तो obviously rebate कितना मिलेगा इधर आपको? 9,500. तो आपका टैक्स पेएबल कितना हो जाएगा? डू यू एग्री? तो ये पॉइंट हमेशा याद रखो, पहले आपको रिबेट देना है एंड रिबेट लेस करने के बाद कुछ टैक्स बच गया तो उसके ऊपर आपको क्या करना है? सेस कंप्यूटेशन करना है. ऑलराइट? हाँ, तो टैक्स में यही जो छोटे छोटे पॉइंट्स है ना वो आपको ध्यान से नोट डाउन करना है. लिख लो ये, फिर हम लोग नेक्स्ट पॉइंट पे जाते हैं. किसी को कुछ भी डाउट्स आता रहेगा तो पूछते जाओ हाँ बीच में. दिख रहा है अभी तीनों क्वेश्चंस? हो गया?
हाँ सर, हो गया है।
Okay. Can you see Excel now?
यस सर।
हाँ, अभी
Yes, sir.
income of Miss Malini, whose age is 35 years, is 60 lakhs. You are required to compute tax liability for her. Hmm? Remember, if the income of the person exceeds rupees 50 lakh, then he or she is liable for a surcharge, and that surcharge rate is 10%. तो आप इनकम टैक्स कंप्यूट कर पाओगे? यस.
Yes.
मालिनी का इनकम 60 लाख है एंड सरचार्ज रेट 10% है, तो आप टैक्स कंप्यूट करके मुझे बताओ कितना टैक्स उसको आएगा इंक्लूडिंग सरचार्ज एंड सेस. बाकी लोगों का क्या है? 18,44,700 आया?
Yes, sir.
Yes.
यस, चेक कर एक बार. ओके, यहाँ पे तो 12,500 आएगा. ये 1,00,000 हो जाएगा. Now this is 60 minus 10 lakh. तो यह है आपका टैक्स लायबिलिटी.
यस सर.
याद रखो, इसमें पहले ऐड करना है सरचार्ज. तो टैक्स के बाद हमेशा पहले आएगा सरचार्ज. तो आपने पहले सेस ऐड किया रहेगा तो आपका टोटल आंसर करेक्ट आएगा, लेकिन अमाउंट वाइज इट इज रॉन्ग. सो फर्स्ट ऑफ ऑल ऑलवेज you have to first consider surcharge. Alright, and फिर इसके बाद add health and education cess, which is at the rate of 4%. Yes, so total tax liability आएगा 18,44,700. Alright. So is everyone clear with the tax calculation? First surcharge, then cess, and then total tax liability. But cess has to be calculated on tax and surcharge total, and then you will compute the health and education cess. Clear? Okay. Earlier, the surcharge rates were quite easy and simple, but now the surcharge rates are not so simple because there are multiple layers of surcharge. So what are the different layers of surcharge? I'll show you here. Got it? तो सरचार्ज रेट्स कैसे है? तो आपका इनकम अगर 50 लाख तक है तो आपको सरचार्ज नहीं आएगा. एंड अगर आपका इनकम 50 लाख से 1 करोड़ तक है तो 10% आएगा. 1 crore to 2 crore it is 15%. 2 to 5 crore it is 25%, and above 5 crore it is 37%. So you can imagine that person who is having 10 crore income, so we are happy and we say that okay kitna acha income hai. Lekin if you compute tax liability, the tax is huge for the person. So I'll give one more example to solve. Okay. अभी आपको कंप्यूट करना है इनकम टैक्स फॉर मिस मेधा, जिसका इनकम है 5 करोड़ 60 लाख रुपए. सो मेधा एज 65, उसको इनकम है 5 करोड़ 60 लाख. तो उसका टैक्स निकालो एंड विल वेरीफाई द आंसर. तो क्विकली बताओ टैक्स कितना आएगा मेधा का? क्या आंसर 23 लाख सॉरी 2 करोड़ 36 लाख 65,928 आया और यू आर गेटिंग डिफरेंट आंसर. चेक करो.
सर इनका एज क्राइटेरिया की वजह से चेंज होएगा ना स्लैब. हाँ 22 करोड़ 36 लाख 65,928.
Right.
करेक्ट. एज 65 है तो ये कितना होना चाहिए बेसिक एग्जम्पशन लिमिट?
अप टू 3 लाख.
3 lakh mean.
So it should start from 3 lakh. See, बाकी कैलकुलेशन में कुछ फर्क नहीं है. Only difference is since she is a senior citizen, तो उसके लिए बेसिक एग्जम्पशन लिमिट होगा 3 लाख रुपया. हाँ 65 इयर्स मतलब 60 से ज्यादा हमने देखा. 60 से ज्यादा रहेगा तो बेसिक एग्जम्पशन होगा 3 लाख. एंड अगर एज 80 या उससे ज्यादा रहेगा तो
5 लाख.
5 लाख का बेसिक एग्जम्पशन मिलेगा. करेक्ट. तो इसके लिए पहले ब्रैकेट में 3 to 5 lakhs मतलब 2 लाख पे 5% मतलब ये होगा 10,000. देन 10 लाख के ऊपर 1 करोड़ 65 lakhs. देन सरचार्ज रेट कितना आएगा 37% आएगा. सेस आएगा 4%. सो टोटल टैक्स लायबिलिटी कितना होगा 2 करोड़ 36 लाख 65,928 rupees. Correct? You got this answer?
Yes.
Very good. यहाँ
सर
तक का
इतना
कैलकुलेशन सब. हाँ
इतना टैक्स नहीं भरते क्या सर?
क्या क्या?
इतना टैक्स नहीं भरने का. इतना मेहनत से कमाया सब इधर टैक्स भर देंगे.
अभी देखो यही होता है. like we say कि okay 5 करोड़ इनकम है 10 करोड़ इनकम है, but if you see its effective tax rate it is 42.26%. मतलब जो भी कमा रहा है उसमें से 42% तो टैक्स में ही जा रहा है बेचारी का. आर यू गेटिंग दिस? यस. अभी मैं आपको और एक क्वेश्चन देता हूँ, उसका आंसर आप मुझे बताओ. ओके मिस्टर राजा का टैक्स मुझे आप कैलकुलेट करके बताओ. राजा जिसका इनकम है 51 lakhs, what will be his tax liability? So wherever your income, आपका इनकम 1 लाख से बढ़ रहा है अबाउ 50 lakhs एंड आपका टैक्स लायबिलिटी बढ़ रहा है 1,64,250 से. सो आपको यहाँ पे मार्जिनल रिलीफ का बेनिफिट मिलेगा. कितना रिलीफ का बेनिफिट मिलेगा? तो रिलीफ आएगा आपका 64,250 विच इज डिफरेंस इन बोथ ऑफ देम. फिर जो नेट आएगा उसके ऊपर आपको सेस कैलकुलेट करना है. एंड एज वी डिस्कस सेस के लिए आपको कोई भी रिलीफ नहीं मिलेगा. सेस का जो ज्यादा अमाउंट जा रहा है आपका फिर भी एडिशनल इनकम 1 लाख है 50 लाख के ऊपर एंड आपका टैक्स लायबिलिटी 1,04,000 एक्स्ट्रा जा रहा है, बट इसके लिए आपको कोई बेनिफिट नहीं मिलेगा. So hopefully this calculation is clear to everyone.
Yes.
Yes.
Yes sir.
Yes. Priyanka,
Yes, sir.
Rutuja, yes. Clear है?
Yes, sir.
Okay. ये लिख लो, फिर मैं आपको और एक क्वेश्चन देता हूँ जो आपको ध्यान से करना है। हाँ? ठीक है, ऐसे वंस यू आर क्लियर विद द टैक्स कैलकुलेशन, जब भी हम लोग हेड्स ऑफ इनकम में जाएंगे तो तभी आपको कैलकुलेशन इजी जाएगा। एंड डोंट टेक इट लाइटली। हाँ, 2 लगातार अटेम्प्ट में उन्होंने मार्जिनल रिलीफ का क्वेश्चन एमसीक्यूज में पूछा था, बट देखो 2 मार्क ही सही, बट पूरा 2 मार्क मिल जाएगा ना आपको। एक टैक्स कंप्यूटेशन का था एमसीक्यूज में, दूसरा था ये मार्जिनल रिलीफ का। तो इसके लिए मेक दिस कंसेप्ट वेरी क्लियर एज टू हाउ दिस मार्जिनल रिलीफ इज कंप्यूटेड। ऑलराइट, once you complete Raja, then calculate for Mr. Akshay. एंड रिमेम्बर यहाँ पे भी आपको रिलीफ कैलकुलेट करना पड़ेगा, मैं सामने से बता रहा हूँ। एंड 1,50,00,000 है, तो आपको किससे कंपेयर करना पड़ेगा? स्टिल यू हैव टू कंपेयर विद 50 lakhs. यस,
नो सर,
नो, तो किससे कंपेयर करेंगे? 1 करोड़ से कंपेयर कर। यस यस, तो राजा का लिख लो एंड फिर अक्षय का मुझे कंप्यूट करके बताओ कितना है।
श्योर सर।
ऑलराइट, तो 1,50,00,000 के लिए 15% सरचार्ज लिया, 1 करोड़ के लिए 10% सरचार्ज लिया, and then we compared additional income of 50,000 with additional tax of 157,875. Then we compared the difference, and that difference was considered as marginal relief, and accordingly आपका net tax payable आया, जिसके ऊपर हम लोगों ने सेस कंप्यूट किया। ऑलराइट, यस अक्षय, क्लियर है?
हाँ सर, क्लियर है।
Yes, good. So hopefully everyone is enjoying the tax calculations. Yes.
Yes, sir.
Yes,
Yeah.
sir.
यस सर।
तो कल के लेक्चर में हम लोग इसको कंटिन्यू करते हैं एंड प्लीज बी अटेंटिव एंड एक्टिव व्हाइल सॉल्विंग द सम्स, बिकॉज जितना आप अभी करोगे ना उतना आपका you will be used to do that doing the tax calculations, because आज के दिन तो हम लोगों ने सिर्फ स्लैब वाइज टैक्सेशन लिया, कल हम लोग क्या करने वाले, वी आर गोइंग टू हैव अ मिक्सचर जहाँ पे आपका स्पेशल रेट वाला इनकम भी आएगा एंड अपना रेगुलर स्लैब वाइज इनकम भी आएगा, एंड फिर हम लोग टैक्स कंप्यूटेशन सीखेंगे। हाँ, अभी कैसे सीधा स्लैब में डाल दिया आंसर निकल गया, कल हमारा लॉन्ग टर्म कैपिटल गेन रहेगा एंड अदर इनकम रहेगा, या फिर लॉटरी रहेगा एंड अदर इनकम रहेगा, तो आपको दोनों साथ में कैलकुलेशन करना आना चाहिए। ऑलराइट, तो ये दो होमवर्क के लिए लिख लो, दो क्वेश्चन।